What's up, FTFers? Today, JJ coming at you with a very interesting topic. So I asked AI to analyze all of my videos and to tell me what it considers to be my top 10 survival items. Is Terminator 2 a documentary of things to come?
I'll be back.
Now, before we get into this, I want to be very clear. I have been very trepid about AI from the get-go. And if it hadn't been for my good friend Patrick with Vargold, I don't know that I ever would have done it. But like anything else, you really can't speak to something if you don't try it out. So I thought I would download ChatGPT and then I would ask it this question. In full disclosure, I didn't have any idea of what to expect. I simply asked it a question and this is what it gave me. Now, before we get in here and we talk about this stuff, I'm just gonna read the list and the explanation that it actually gave me. And here's how it opened up. Based on your expertise and the survival strategies demonstrated in your videos, here's a list of what I consider to be your top 10 survival items. Number 1, your custom multi-tool, the Frankenman. This represents your focus on efficiency, versatility, and problem solving. Not so sure I would have opened the list with that one. Number 2, the Gray Man knife. Designed by you, which embodies utility, adaptability, and survivability. Shit. Ooh, it's windy today. A knife designed by you, which embodies utility, adaptability, and functionality for survival tasks. An AI after my own heart. Should have been number 1. Number 3, the Glock 29 10 mil. Prioritized for self-defense and resource protection, reflecting your philosophy of preparedness. Number 4, the Wazoo Cash Belt and Adventure Kit. You consider this the ultimate Gray Man accessory, a stealthy, multi-purpose item for carrying essential tools and resources which aligns with your tradecraft. Number 5, your civilian Number 5, your civilian adaptation of the Equix Gen 3 clothing system. This demonstrates your commitment to adaptability with core temperature control and protection in both woodland and urban environments. Number 6, the Military Modular Sleep System, the MMSS. A versatile and proven sleep system essential for protection and comfort in various climates. Number 7, merino wool layers, base, socks, gloves, and your neck gaiter. You place a high emphasis on hygiene. These are selected for their moisture wicking, odor resistant, and insulating properties. Number 8, the Grail Titanium Geopress Water Purifier. A reliable and efficient way to secure safe drinking water in any environment. Number 9 on the list is actually pretty interesting to me because it says the Wazoo Fire Kit. And it's specifically named the Viking Spark and the Fire Card. You place a high emphasis on fire in your survival priorities. Wazoo provides a compact and reliable system of creating fire, a fundamental survival priority. And number 10, the DD 3 meter by 3 meter ultralight tarp. For tactically efficient shelter building, that's a good one. For tactically efficient shelter building, which highlights your preference for multifunctional gear. Now, obviously, I was a little bit surprised by this list, and I just couldn't help myself. I had to ask it one more question. Why did you choose these items for me? And here's what it said. These items reflect a blend of fieldcraft, tradecraft, and survival basics to go along with your unique approach to preparedness. They cover critical survival needs, self-defense, shelter, water, fire, and adaptability in multiple environments. Okay, Okay, I gotta be honest with you, this made me actually think pretty hard. There's a lot of things to talk about. Let's just jump in it. Number 1, my biggest question was, you know, does AI actually know me better than I know myself, number 1? And so number 2, is that how the audience perceives my videos and the things that I put out there for y'all to actually learn? And number 3, should I look in the mirror and say, okay, I need to analyze myself and the content that I'm putting out because I'm not so sure this is what I want out there. Because let's be honest, if somebody asked me that question, number 1, my first response would have been, well, I don't like top 10 lists to begin with. And number 2, it doesn't matter what kit that I put out there for y'all to see, it has always based on survival priorities. Now, within this list, there are some of our priorities, but not all of them. And I think it's interesting that it shows my kit mentality as an item rather than just 10 separate items. Because let's say I was doing the Alone show or something, and here's your JJ's top 10 list of things that he's going to take to Alone. Because that list is going to be a lot different than what came out on paper here. Now, I will say there are a lot of things in this that I really like a lot. So let's just start at the top of the list and we'll go down it. My custom multi-tool. That one kind of blew my mind because I know that there's a lot of people that would say, yes, I would consider a multi-tool to be in my top 10 list. And if I only had to do one item in a survival challenge, I would probably choose a multi-tool. And I'm not going to say that that's not a good choice, but when I chose to do a challenge here recently up in North Carolina with Jason, I actually chose to take my Gray Man knife with me. And I'm not saying that I wouldn't do a survival challenge with my custom multi-tool here, but I am highly shocked that it put it as first on the list. So that one threw me for a loop a little bit. Now, I'm not really surprised at all about number 2, the Gray Man knife. That is something that I consider to be one of the most valuable tools in my kit. And I should add that, Mike wasn't included in the description from AI, and he helped design this knife. And I'm pretty sure that if William was here, he would say, hey, I just follow directions really well. And what I can say about the knife is it was literally designed to be a utility knife. That was what it was designed to be. Elements of fieldcraft, hunting, bushcraft, survival, food prep, defense, I mean, you name it, this is a utility knife. And so yes, I would have certainly have put this one on the list. The Glock 29, yes, 100% 2A, freedom, America. I've got to say that I'm a little bit shocked that it was actually able to identify the actual weapon itself. Like, it didn't say handgun in the description. It literally said Glock 29 10 millimeter. I don't know if I should be worried about that or not. But yes, I consider my defense to be a very high priority. Now, number 4, I was really excited about because, yeah, the cash belt, I mean, you're supposed to put the stuff in there. It's supposed to be an insurance policy. You forget about it, the time comes, you need it, you've got it. The problem is that I use this stuff all the time. So I'm having to constantly replace the parts of that kit in my belt. And I've got to say, it is the coolest party trick when you open up a bottle at a party. I've said it 100 times over. I don't know why everybody in the world doesn't have a Wazoo cash belt with an adventure kit in it. There are lots of stories online of people going through the airport and through federal buildings, and everything that was designed on the list will pass because it was designed to do that. It's even passed Israeli security. If you don't believe me, just go to the website and check it out for yourself. Myself, personally, I have flown with it and I have been in federal buildings and I have never had a problem. They've never even asked me to open it. So yes, I'm really glad that the belt made it onto the top 10 list of survival items that AI chose for me. All right, now the civilian adaptation of the Equix Gen 3 system. I'm actually wearing the level 7 right now. I've got to say, yes, I believe that that particular system is incredible. As far as bang for the buck goes, you're not going to find anything better. I mean, if you wear this system, they say it's rated to -60. Now, I don't believe that at all. What I can tell you is from experience that I have been in -25 and -30 degree weather for 7 days at a time. I wore this and I was fine. I'm not going to say that I was so comfortable and there was no problems whatsoever. What I will say is that it definitely worked. And just so that I don't look military all the time, I basically adapted that into my philosophy on how I layer. And if you don't have anything else, you would thank God that you dress properly. One thing that I try to preach to people is you should dress for the worst possible condition for this time of year in your area. And that applies to both hot and cold environments. Needless to say, I think clothing is very important, and so I'm glad that it actually made it onto the list. Number 6 was the MMSS. I've got the bivvy right there. I also have the patrol bag on the inside, and then I also have the foam cell pad that goes with it too. Now, I don't feel the need to carry the entire system, but that's what it's really for. you can adapt to any kind of environment. Sure, I have used the entire system before when I was in extreme climates, and that's what it's for. It's so that you can adapt to whatever environment you're in. You basically have 3 bags and you have a pad, and you can take away or add depending on wherever you're going. Now, full disclosure, the entire system weighs about 9 pounds. And somebody's gonna say, you can get bags a lot lighter than that. You can get a system a lot lighter than that. Well, let's look at that real quick. So, you know, some of your best backpacking, lightweight backpacking tents, they actually weigh somewhere below 4 pounds. And then you also have to consider that you need a sleeping bag and a mat. Now, depending on the environment that you're going into, I mean, that could weigh 5, 6 pounds. It could weigh a couple pounds. And one thing for sure, it is not going to be as tough as the MMSS is. So even if it weighed 1 or 2 pounds more to have a complete system, I'm willing to carry it because it just works. For me, it's really a matter of quality. If I was in a dire emergency, I would want something that I knew for sure was not gonna tear up. And so far, that's the best thing that I have found. Now, I gotta say, number 7 kind of shocked me with the merino wool layers. I'm not saying that I don't appreciate merino wool layers, especially when it comes to my base layers, my socks, my gloves, my neck gaiter, and all of that. And I think AI was coming from a place of hygiene, because I do talk about hygiene quite a bit in my videos. But if I was making this list, I would have included number 7 with my civilian adaptation of the Equix Gen 3 system, because I really consider the clothing and the clothing system to be in a category of its own. And so if I had made this list, I would have moved number 7 into number 5, and that would have left me with 1 open. Question is, what would I put in that slot? The first thing that came to mind was, well, you gotta have a pack to carry this stuff. I don't wanna carry all of this stuff underneath my arms and holding it all in my hands. You need a reliable system that will carry the stuff that you got. And you also need the ability to pick stuff up along the way. It's that MacGyver mentality. But also a big one that was left off of the list was food. Now, I know a lot of people put food way down on the priority list, but hey, after the emergency happens and you're sheltering in place or you have to self-rescue, it becomes a calorie game. I don't like to look at my survival priorities like they're in a list. A list implies that you have to start at the top and finish at the bottom. And most people kind of base their priorities based on the survival rule of 3s, which honestly, I think is a bunch of hogwash. Because I have done challenges before where after 1 day, I was so thirsty. And I'm telling you, thirst is a powerful motivator. And seriously, what is the longest amount of time that you have ever fasted? For me personally, I start making bad decisions after the 2nd day. By the 3rd day, I'm not doing so well. The truth is, you're gonna be affected by not taking in those calories. And it's not just about calories, it's about a balanced diet, having proteins, carbs, sugars, fats, all the micronutrients, etc., into the diet. And for some reason, people always leave electrolytes off of that list too, and they're critical as well. So when you boil it all down in survival and you look at those survival priorities, I mean, there's always the core 4: shelter, water, fire, and food. And I don't see anything on this list about food, and so that bothers me. Now, what I did see on the list that's really important is the GeoPress. And I like that it actually included that, because within the titanium version of the GeoPress, we also have the titanium cup, which is a redundancy. So we could purify our water, we could cook our food with this, etc. I also like the fact that it has this D-ring, and I can lower it down to other water sources if I don't have access to them. And one thing that's really cool about it is it does pass the WHO and the EPA standards, and I can basically use this to gather, filter, purify, and carry my water anywhere that I go. Except for the ocean, of course. It's not a desalinator. Need to be clear about that. Needless to say, I am glad that this made it onto the list. I'm very happy about that. I do consider this to be a very, very valuable piece of equipment. And after I did that challenge in North Carolina last year with Jason, I gotta say, I would have killed. I mean, I would have literally killed to have had one of those during that challenge. Now, the Wazoo Fire Kit, I'm kind of surprised because I'm always talking about fire being the gateway to meeting all of your priorities. But there's a lot more to my fire kit than just my Viking Spark and the fire card itself. I mean, one thing that it didn't mention was my lighter with the duct tape. Also didn't mention my 10 power EOS magnifier that I'm wearing. It didn't talk anything about the bellows that I have in my kit. It didn't say anything about the Wazoo tender tabs, which are actually in my belt. I mean, what are the hardest things to source in an emergency? It's gonna be your tender and your fire extenders. And so I always have at least 3 ways to start a fire on me at all times. I even go one step further because I place such a high emphasis on this, and I carry a large ferro rod with me as well. Because what I can say from experience is that every survival scenario that I have ever been in, I actually had to use a 1/2 inch by 6 inch ferro rod. And at the time, I thanked God that I had it. So I'm kind of interested in why it came up with number 9. I'm really excited that it was another, series of Wazoo products, because not all the gadgets out there are created equal, and Wazoo produces high quality stuff. It is the kind of stuff that you can depend on. And let's just get real. If I was in a survival scenario, could I take the Viking Spark and the fire cart and light a fire? It would probably be very difficult, but I could definitely get it done. Wazoo's slogan is everyday carry, wild capability, and I can tell you that is true. Now, number 10, the 3 meter by 3 meter lightweight DD tarp. Yes, I love that thing. It is lightweight. It is multifunctional. I always try to warn y'all against multifunction gear. If you set up your shelter and it was pouring rain and you had to go get fire supplies, how are you gonna keep yourself dry when you're out on the prowl? So I always talk about that. If you have the tarp, then you probably need the rain gear as well. For this pack, I actually have a pack cover, and then I have waterproof bags on the inside. Everything is protected, including me. I have rain gear inside of the pack as well, on top of having a shelter. And another thing I highlight is being tactically efficient, being able to get to it when it matters the most. So now that we've gone through the list, I've got to say, this is not exactly what I would have come up with myself. If somebody just asked me this question, I would have written a different list. One thing that I found fascinating, though, was that it also talked about kits in this list, because that's how I would have done my list as well. I don't believe in just, having 10 single items in a list. I don't think that you should, limit yourself to that. I think that that is actually pretty ridiculous. And I've also got to say that there were so many other questions that I had that I wanted to ask AI, but I got off of the program. What I really want to know is your opinion. What do you think? Based on the stuff that I just talked about, and based on the videos that you've seen of mine in the past, what do you think my list would be? What's missing, or what would you take away? And do you think that it's scary that it actually came up with this list? Because I think that it's pretty scary that AI knows me that well. So if you're honey smack digging the video, like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and until next time, y'all, keep fueling those fires.